Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to each one of you for the joining today for the CSR Conclave on creating an impactful CSR strategy. I would like to invite Mr. Ritesh Tiwari, President Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry and CFO Hindustan Unilever Limited and Unilever South Asia and Independent Director ONDC Board to deliver opening remarks for the conclave.
Shri Inderjit Singh, Union Minister of State, Independent Charge of Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Ministry of Planning and Ministry of Corporate Affairs. Mr. Hemant Gupta, Head BSc, Social Stock Exchange. Dr. Subramania Kusnur, Founding Chairman and CEO, Aquacraft Group Ventures, Treasurer, Governing Council of UN Global Compact Network India, and Consultant, Ministry of Water Supply, Sri Lanka. Our moderators and panelists and ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and namaskar to all of you. As the President of Bombay Chamber, it gives me great pleasure to welcome all of you to this year's CSR Conclave on an extremely important topic, which is to create an impactful CSR strategy. We all know if you don't get the strategy right, execution will not be meaningful and will not be impactful. Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry, established in 1836, has now been serving trade and industry for 187 years. The Chamber has always leveraged the intellectual capital inherent in its membership to promote good governance and ethical conduct of business, ensuring equitable and balanced growth of the country. CSR is much more than short-term philanthropic gestures. It's about making systemic and sustained investments that create material, positive social impact to our community and society at large. CSR requires business to build a framework around responsibility to society and being accountable to all stakeholders, ensuring consumers, employees, shareholders, and all stakeholders, including environment, is fully accounted for and catered for as part of running the business model. CSR investments have really grown steadily in the country. In fact, the last financial year, India Inc. has spent 26,000 crore on CSR, which is a substantial amount of money, and this money has grown at 14% CAGR in the last 7 years, and which is the very important reason why an impactful CSR strategy can lead to investing this substantial amount of resources for the country, for the national good as well. We see that Indian companies have become much more strategic in their CSR approach, focusing on areas that have potential to make a larger impact to lives of the people. The four key areas where today country has spent a lot of resources is number one, healthcare, number two, education, number three, environmental sustainability, and of course the most important topic of poverty and hunger. Almost 70% of the spend today gets spent in these four areas, and it's good to see that there are common areas which most of the companies are addressing to create an impactful, meaningful sum to make a contribution. EY report calls it a myth that a CSR-driven approach to business pits corporate goal against social goals. We all know that the two are not mutually exclusive. The financial cost today of ignoring CSR is arguably much higher than it has ever been. The increasing consumer awareness is giving rise to rapidly emerging green consumers. Employees as well today prefer organizations. In fact, there's a statistics which is quoted that 55% employees today would like to join a company which is more sustainable and CSR driven and much more responsible to the society. CSR driven growth is quickly becoming and understood to be the only possible sustainable growth model for any business to thrive and success. Now, becoming an accountable business with a meaningful mission and a robust CSR strategy is an ongoing process. In my mind, there are multiple things which can go to make an impactful CSR strategy, but let me name three of them to start with. First, we all know that CSR, if it's seen from a lens of a short-term philanthropic gesture, it will never have its impact. In fact, any initiative which is being taken in CSR, it has much higher chance of success if it's a multi-year strategy where a company, organization chooses to invest in a area and sticks on to it for multiple years to make that cumulative impact through social structures. Second, to do a CSR, I genuinely believe that a company needs to find its own areas of expertise. And when you bring the purpose and expertise together, the impact is always magnified. So it's equally important for companies to look at their own areas of strength and then lean into the CSR structure. And last but not least, in my view, CSR, like sustainability overall, it's not a zero-sum game. This is not an area we compete with each other. This is an area where pooling resources will make enough amount of impact cumulatively as a society. There are many companies whose total CSR contribution will be smaller in size, but if those contributions are pooled together for a common cause, it could have much larger impact. Equally, to crack technology in this area, we also need to pool our resources. So those are the three areas in my mind which could lead to an impactful CSR strategy. And I'm really glad today that's the topic of conversation, that if the resources are so substantial, you heard the number earlier from me, 26,000 crore, if that is channelized with an impactful CSR strategy, it could make tremendous impact to society at large. The Bombay Chamber of Commerce and Industry has organized this conclave, hence today, on creating an impactful CSR strategy. The CSR committee has done an excellent job in crafting the agenda for this conclave. I would also like to thank HUL, DBS Bank and HSBC for supporting this conclave. I hope today's discussion will be insightful to companies on their journey to build an impactful CSR strategy. I would also like to thank Girish Agarwal for helping us get the Minister and Minister your thought to all of us today. And now, without further ado, let me hand over back to Ania to take the program forward.
Thank you, Mr. Tiwari. Now I request Honorable Minister Shri Inderjit Singh, who joined us today virtually to deliver keynote address. Before that, I will take few minutes to introduce him. Shri Inderjit Singh is currently Union Minister of State, Minister of Statistics and Program Implementation, Minister of Planning and Ministry of Corporate Affairs. He is currently serving as the Member of Parliament representing the Gurgaon constituency since 2009. He elected 5th time MP Lok Sabha. His father, late Rao Birender Singh, was the ex-Chief Minister of Haryana. Shri Singh is a descendant of Rao Tula Ram, a freedom fighter of India's first war independence in 1857. He is a political and social worker, agriculturist, and the advocate. He holds BA Honorary degree from Hindu College, Delhi University, and LLB degree from the Law Faculty at Delhi University. He is also a sports champion, having been a member of the Indian shooting team from 1990 to 2003. He was also a national champion in ski discipline for 3 years and has secured 3 gold medals in SAF Games and bronze medal in Commonwealth Shooting Championship. Shri Singh's political career has been equally illustrated. He has been Union Minister of State of several ministries including External Affairs, Defence, Chemical and Fertilizer, Urban Development, Planning, amongst others. He has been elected as a member of a Legislative Assembly 4 times from the Jatusena Vidhan Sabha in Haryana. He served as a Minister of State, independent charge for the food and civil supplies in Government of Haryana. His commitment to public service continued as he assumed the role of a cabinet minister in the government of Haryana from 1991 to 1996. During his tenure, he handled portfolio-related environment and forest and medical and technical education, contributing significantly to the state's development. Shri Singh was elected to the 12th Lok Sabha in 1998. During this term, he was a member of Committee of Science and Technology and Environment and Forest. He was re-elected to the 14th Lok Sabha and served as the Union Minister of State for the External Affairs from May 2004 to February 2006, followed by a tenure as the Union Minister of State for Defence from January to February 2006 to 2009. During his re-election to the 15th Lok Sabha in 2009, he chaired the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Information Technology. He resigned from the 15th Lok Sabha in April 2014, but was subsequently re-elected to the 16th Lok Sabha in May 2014. During his term, he served as Union Minister of State in Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, and Ministry of Defence. He has held a key position as a Union Minister of State in the Ministry of Planning and Ministry of Defence from November 2014 to July 2016. Subsequently, he served as a Union Minister of State, Minister of Planning, Minister of Urban Development, and Minister of Housing and Urban Poverty Alleviation from July 2016 to 2017. From September 2017 to May 2019, Shri Singh assumed the role of Union Minister of State in the Ministry of Planning and Ministry of Chemical and Fertilizer. He was re-elected to 17 Lok Sabha in May 2019 for the fifth term and continued his service as Union Minister of State in the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation and Minister of Planning from May 2019 to July 2021. Shri Singh is an active participant in the social and cultural activities. He is also deeply committed to providing educational facilities in the rural areas. In his leisure time, he enjoys exploring the wonders of nature and reading, etc. His sporting interests extended to golf, swimming, tennis, and shooting. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you for a very comprehensive introduction, madam. It just goes to show that I've been around for a very, very long time. Invitees to the CSR conclave, ladies and gentlemen. The concept of CSR, which espoused that the wealth should be used for the benefit of all. Further, the idea of Gandhiji's trusteeship philosophy stated that the surplus wealth needs to be kept in trust for the common good and welfare of others. Ministry of Corporate Affairs has acknowledged this culture in India and has been proactive in formulating a CSR ecosystem in the country, which makes corporates an active participant in the socio-economic development of the nation. India is the first country in the world to make CSR mandatory for companies through statutory provision under the Companies Act 2013. The government provides the broad framework of CSR through Section 135 of the Companies Act 2013, Schedule 7 of the Companies Act, and Company CSR Policy Rules 2014. The law mandates a certain class of companies to undertake CSR activities as per Schedule 7 and CSR Policy Rules. CSR is a board-driven process, and the board of the company has the responsibility of ideation, planning, execution, and impact assessment of CSR activities based on the recommendations of its CSR committee. The CSR policy of the company factors in the social and environmental challenges faced by the stakeholders, and thus the companies are able to form a deeper and more meaningful connection with the stakeholders and the community that they operate in. Hence, the concept of CSR has witnessed a transformation wherein it has evolved from mere philanthropy to becoming a part of strategic business decision making in the corporate sector. CSR ecosystem has engaged the corporates to contribute towards the social development initiatives in the country and nurture well-being of the people. The companies are no longer just contributing a percentage of their profits towards CSR obligations. Rather, they are sharing their resources such as leadership, managerial skills, technology, innovation, etc., and are proactively engaging with the community at the grassroots level. Hence, CSR is no longer perceived as an act of charity or voluntary support to the needy. Today, it forms an integral part of a company's business philosophy. Since legislation mandated CSR with effect from April 2014, companies have spent more than 1.5 lakh crores in different activities mentioned in Schedule 7. Both the number of companies contributing to CSR as well as their annual CSR expenditure have increased during the period 2014-15 to 2021-22. During COVID-19 pandemic, companies rose to the occasion generously, contributed and engaged with the community. CSR has evoked enormous stakeholders' interest and feedback since its introduction. and the government has been proactive in taking various initiatives to strengthen the CSR ecosystem. Some of these are two high-level committees on CSR, one in 2015 and the other in 2018, where were constituted. Both the committees have made far-reaching recommendations which has shaped the legislative framework and thus strengthened the CSR ecosystem. In January 2018, the National CSR Data Portal was launched for ensuring accountability and transparency in CSR disclosures by companies. Making the portal accessible to general public has ensured public oversight of CSR expenditure by companies. Since 2021, a class of companies has been mandated to carry out impact assessment of their CSR practices. The purpose of impact assessment is to assess the social impact of a particular CSR project. This will encourage companies to take an informed decision before deploying their CSR funds. This will not only serve as a feedback for the companies to plan and allocate resources better, but shall also deepen the impact of CSR. Ministry of Corporate Affairs has developed a national CSR exchange portal in the year of 2021. This portal provides an interactive platform to the stakeholders, companies, and implementing agencies to bridge demand-supply gap by facilitating interaction between the stakeholders. The companies and the implementing agencies can list, search, interact, engage, and manage their CSR projects on a voluntary basis. So now the implementing agencies located in far-off states can reach out to companies by using this exchange portal. On the occasion of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, the MCA has released an e-compendium on CSR, which compiles the legal framework of CSR in one destination. The e-compendium is one-stop destination for information related to CSR and will thus facilitate the stakeholders to gain a deeper understanding of the CSR ecosystem. However, initiatives by the government are only successful if they are adopted in letter and spirit by the stakeholders. In this background, I wish to congratulate the companies which have actively adopted CSR framework in its letter and spirit and inculcated it as a part of their business philosophy. It is with immense pride and honor that I am able to say that many companies are making contributions in excess of their mandatory 2% obligation and have thus taken an active part in contributing towards a socio-economic development of the country. Lastly, I wish to add that the government is cognizant of the fact that companies and businesses have assumed a central role in attaining our developmental goals, and we will continue to strive towards providing an enabling environment for Indian companies to keep up the spirit of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. Jai Hind.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your thought-provoking keynote address. Moving forward, now I request Mr. Hemant Gupta, head BSc Social Stock Exchange, to deliver a thematic address. We have uploaded all profiles of speakers on our website, so you can have a check on it. Over to you, Mr. Gupta.
So while they do that, I'll do a quick introduction. My name is Hemant Gupta. I run the Social Stock Exchange at BSc. I know some of you, not all of you. Before I started running the Social Stock Exchange, we launched it only last year. I was running a company called BSc Samman CSR Limited, and in fact the National CSR Exchange portal that the Honorable Minister spoke about was BSc Samman, which was taken over by the government, and relaunched as the National CSR Exchange. I also have one more hat that I wear at BSc, which is that I also run the tech incubator there. There's a technology startup incubator we have at BSc. There are many in the audience who are far more qualified than me to actually make this presentation. So I like to keep it interactive. So if you guys have any thoughts, anything you'd like to add, criticize, please feel free to do so. Thank you. Okay, so what we'll do is, it's a short presentation. What the way I thought I'll structure this is that these two are independent of each other. This is different from this. How does that mean? So the way I thought I'd structure this is that just try and explain why is the CSR strategy important, and then how do you structure it, and then do a quick summary. So this slide basically talks about what I just said, which is that I spent 26 years at Citibank and then finally decided to do something more useful. So I joined BSc. By God's grace, BSc was looking to set up this subsidiary called BSc Samman. So I joined there. And actually, to be perfectly honest, it's been about 7 years. And I've learned far more in these 7 years than I've learned in these 26 years of Citibank. And Mr. Paranjape was there for a part of that journey. Good? Okay, thank you. All right. So let's get into why is it important to create a CSR strategy. I have about 15 minutes now of time left. So what we do is, if you guys can give me some ideas on why you think CSR strategy is important. A couple of ideas.
Gets you going.
Sorry?
Gets you going.
Gets you going, gets you started. Friction.
Wash corporate guilt.
Wash corporate guilt. That's the high level philosophical purpose of CSR, not the strategy part only.
How to go about doing CSR?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So there are two, what I've done is I've divided it into two parts. One is from an external facing point of view, why is it important, and then from an internal point of view, why is it important, and try to keep that balance in whatever discussions I'm doing, which is both from the outside world, why is it what you're doing important, and then from an inside world, why is it important. Okay, and like some of you have said, no problem. Yeah. Okay. So clearly, one is that identification of CSR priorities. What do you want to achieve? How do you want to achieve it? So the first three topic talks about like what do you want to do, how you want to do it, and in terms of concrete action plan. And then the fourth point talks about it's important that you not only talk about what you want to do, but also measure and evaluate how you're doing, keep it data driven. It also helps you communicate with stakeholders as to what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do, and be innovative and inclusive in your CSR strategy. Right? From an internal or a corporate point of view, it obviously spells out your vision and then therefore helps you get greater buy-in from both the management at the corporate as well as from the employees that should form a core part of your CSR strategy. As the Honorable Minister also said, core business competencies play a big role. Increasingly, they are playing a bigger role in being aligned with core business competencies, and this sometimes can be a debatable topic also. But I think it's important that core business competence, that's how CSR becomes sustainable. And it also helps to protect and improve your brand recognition, attract and retain talent, and build greater engagement with partners, which also actually implicitly means that the CSR strategy is not about your organization only, right? It is about both downstream and upstream partners. They're equally important part of that strategy. How do you go about doing this whole thing? Right? Again, remember what I said in the beginning, internal and external focus, keep a balance. Right? Internally, and you'll notice that points in both the lists are very similar. They're like mirror images of each other. Right? So it's important that you get insights from your internal stakeholders, employees, management. Make sure it's aligned with your core business competencies. Align it with community needs. It doesn't have to be adjacent to your office or your factory places, but it's important to understand wherever you're trying to do your CSR work, it has to be aligned with the community needs. Get it all buy-in. Build an internal communication plan. This is something that oftentimes gets lost. Right? It's important. You have to build an external communication plan, but equally importantly, you have to build an internal communication plan and always learn, respond, and improve. Right? It's a continuous cycle of learning from the mistakes and the successes that you've had in the past and improving your CSR strategy. It should not be a static document. Externally, mirror image of what we spoke about on the internal side. Get insights from all external stakeholders, partners, customers. Make sure it's aligned with community needs. Get community buy-in and build an external communication plan. And learn from other corporates, right? It's important that other companies in a similar space, similar size, similar geography, similar sectors, they also can serve as places where you can learn from. Right? So one of the things that happened while I was having coffee was that Dosher was also there. There you go. So we actually discussed the fact that he could probably do a better job of doing this presentation than me. Right? So in summary, a thoughtful strategy requires time, thought and teamwork to build. It requires both external and internal focus and communication. And if done right, it can reap tremendous benefits for the community and the company. Right? That's pretty much it from my side. I think it's important that David Grayson is a very eminent global personality in the CSR space. And I really like this comment of his. It should not be treated as a cost center. It should be an investment in the long-term health of your business. And that should be the objective of the strategy, right? Remember, the strategy has to have a vision and a mission. This has to be what aligns, what creates the strategy. That's it from my side. Any questions, comments, feedback, anything? Okay, great. Yes.
I think one point is that when you look at CSR investments, what are your thoughts on doing a trade-off on investing in areas, say short-term versus long-term? Because you spoke of impacts and needs, but how do you kind of strike a balance between say a long-term investing, because certain impacts might take time and would need much longer investments in your reflections on that?
That's a good question. I mean, given my background, I would say long-term is obviously the best, but I think there are regulatory constraints also that you need to operate in. See, when I was at Saman, there were 2 or 3 things that I used to talk about from a strategy point of view. One is that obviously it has to be aligned with community needs, right? It has to serve, create an impact. Second is it has to be sustainable. And sustainability, to make it sustainable, you have to have a long-term focus. You can't have a short-term focus. And the third is you have to have an exit strategy. Sustainability also means that it should be able to sustain even when you're not there. Right? So therefore, does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
The continuation of that.
I'm sorry, he raised his hand first.
My name is Anand.
Hi, Anand.
My name is.
I think the Zoom guys might not be able to hear you.
Okay.
My name is Anand, and my question is about the new green bonds which are coming up now.
Yeah.
Announced, if not.
I think September 26th they got listed also.
Listed.
The NABARD ones, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
NABARD ones.
Got it.
So I'm a little behind times, at least.
No problem.
So my question is very simple. Will they be part of the CSR 3%, 2%?
I don't think so.
No.
I think those are financial instruments.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's my
those are
question.
not.
No, I understand, but would they not replace, but would they count towards?
So they were, the short answer to your question is that they are not a part of CSR.
Understand.
Okay. The long answer to your question is a discussion I was having with Anant, also Anant, another Anant,
Okay.
was that somewhere down the road, CSR also should talk about outcome-based financing, right?
Right.
And your next session on social stock exchange hopefully will also talk about this. But I think somewhere this blended finance, the concept of being able to pay for performance also has a role to play. I don't think 100% it should be there, but somewhere it has a role to play.
I hope so, because about 10 years back I asked this question at another event, and it was a union minister, so at the very high level it happened. And I was hoping for it to happen some of the others. That's why I asked you on the social stock exchange.
Stock exchange, hopefully it shall happen, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, you had.
Dr. G. Ramesh, based on your experience as a part of Amrit Kaal, what do you see India CSR at 100? That is 2047.
Oh, wow. See, this is, apart from Amrit Kal, it's also the ESG Kal, right? So, I think CSR, so when CSR started, it was something that the company did for the environment, for the extent, not environment is the wrong word to use, for the outside world, right? And sustainability was what the company did for the inside world. And I think you've seen it in what I have presented also. I think the two are coming together, ESG and CSR eventually are converging. And I'm hoping that sustainability, etc., which should form core pillars of Amrit Kaal, will also become core pillars of how companies do business. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Shri, representing Aquacraft.
Hi, Sridhar.
I just had a question. There are a lot of regulations involved in framing CSR policy, and there are government papers along with the budget, and also there are a lot of focus on by the government on various sectors. Broadly, the CSR can be divided in about 8 or 9 areas where the corporates are generally operating through their foundations. Can there be influencers or an influencing body based on the government's focus every year as to look, these are all the areas where the government is focusing, or this particular area where the government is focusing in, say for example, hypothetically 23-24, the government is focusing on, say, women empowerment, hypothetically. Can we nudge the corporates to push towards that particular sector instead of just spraying their investments or their expenditure in various areas?
I'm actually conflicted in what you're saying, and I'll tell you why I'm conflicted. See, remember, ultimately, if you want to create a lasting impact, it has to be aligned with what the community needs and not what the government needs. Right? And therefore, depending on where you're working, you should focus on what that geography, what those people, your target segment needs. And to the extent that it's aligned with what the government is wanting to do, it's great. You'll probably find people around you who are willing to work together with you to that common objective. But if it's not aligned with the 8 to 9 sectors that the government is focusing on, so be it. Right? I think the way I would approach answering your question is that align yourself with community rather than the government.
Good morning, Mr. Gupta. My name is Amisha and I represent BNP Paribas India. I wanted to ask, the fintech sector in the last few years has been pivotal in driving financial inclusion. Do you think enough support is being given to this sector, not fintech, but tech sector, startups, for creating an ecosystem for the social sector?
Okay. Yes and no. Okay. I think in the last 12 years or so, right, the government has played a very good role in enabling startup sector in India. And the reason why I say that is that by and large, they've played the role of an enabler rather than a creator. Okay, so they've understood that this startup business is something that other people can do better. But these people need infrastructure, they need finances to do their job, and therefore they have provided that. But they've done that on a spray and pray basis, rather than focusing on outcomes, which is why I said yes and no. And to the extent that some of the institution incubators focus on the social side and some don't focus on the social side, has never been a criteria for giving funding, either on the seed fund support side or on the incubator TBI side. So therefore, I think the government has played a role in enabling social innovation to happen in the country, but it's not been deliberately only on social innovation. Right? It's been whoever's innovating, and I think government has played a very good role, to be honest.
Thank you.
You're the boss, you decide.
I have a small question.
Yes.
Dr. Subramania, founder of Aquacraft. What has been your experience of running the social stock exchange and the impact that is created out of CSR?
It's too early. I'll give you a short answer to your small question. It's too early. It's been about 9 months. We have about, as of today, I think, 25 NGOs registered on BSC, 24 on NSC. We have the first listing that is about to happen. And there's a whole social stock exchange panel coming up, so I don't want to steal their thunder. But the first listing is about to happen. To my mind, the future of the social stock exchange is not in the donations or grants coming onto the zero coupon, zero principal instruments. I think the future is what I was telling him, which is the blended finance, the structured finance instruments, because there, getting stakeholders together is the biggest challenge, and stock exchange allows you to do that far more easily than any other platform. So therefore, that's where we are. Long way to go. Good beginning.
Really long way to go.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. I request you to stay back. I request Mr. Ritesh Tiwari to present a memento as a token of appreciation to Mr. Gupta.